Hello my fellow book lovers, how are you all doing today? I hope you're doing well. Today I'm coming at you with a March wrap up. I technically read a lot of books. I don't think I did very well with my challenges, so we'll have to see. Because I don't really remember. I know I haven't completed all of them, that I do know. And I didn't complete my TBR, which I knew was a long shot, to be fair. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the books. Well, the one book that I am definitely bringing over into April, and then I'll tell you about the books I did not get to and I'm not planning to necessarily read in April. We shall see. I could very easily end up adding them to my TBR, but who knows. So the one book that I am definitely bringing over into April is Noble by me, Sue Andrews. This is a buddy read with Teresa from Creatively Faithful. We are just over halfway through. I'm currently on chapter 19. I don't know what chapter Teresa is currently on as I'm filming. It's Tuesday, is it the 6th today? Something like that. So yeah, this will be carried on into April. I also didn't finish my Bible reading for Cat's Bible Reading and Retelling Challenge. I can't remember what the prompt was. Oh yeah, it was new, so I went for the New Testament for new, and I picked Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. So I've not finished that, so I'm planning to continue reading that as well as the April prompt. So that's everything I'm taking into April. Let's have a look at the books that I did not get to, and I'm not necessarily planning to bring into April, but might. Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. Didn't get to it, unfortunately. Hopefully I will sometime soon. And then, unfortunately, I didn't get to Ariadne and the Legend of Fire Rose by Krista Cole. Obviously I still want to read this at some point. I said I'll vlog it as well, for my reading Christian booktubers books that they've written, like Christian authors. So this was going to be my first one, and unfortunately it isn't. This was for Chantel's Read a Book Self Challenge, and so part of me is like, I should probably bring this over into April, but the problem is my TBR is massive, and I'm going to talk to you about the last week or so of March and into April, because I don't think it's a good idea for me to add to my already large TBR, let's be honest, for April. And when I say large, obviously I mean for me personally. We all read different amounts of books, and that's okay. So yeah, I'm not going in any particular order. I'm thinking I might go in order of challenges, I guess. So my first one is Chantel's Read a Book Self Challenge. You all know I didn't get to that because that was Ariadne. Christian fiction, I also did not get to that one, and that one is the one that's hosted by Kateri from Book Nerd Kateri. Jurassic Reading Challenge by Cheryl, I did complete that one. The prompt for March was family, and I decided to go for Nevermore. No, that's the series title. But Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is book 2 in the Nevermore series. Now, I do want to say I did not read this physically in the end. In the end, I listened to it on Spotify because it was free. So I did listen to this. I really enjoyed it. I thought, well, maybe should I just say what I used them for? yeah, maybe I'll just say what books they were. So obviously I did that one. And then for Anne's Reading the Classics Challenge, it was a religious classic. And I decided to go for Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis because this is a religious classic for Christians. I have been trying to do American authors, but that didn't work in March, so I used English or British. I'll talk about each of the books when I get to my reviews in my reading journal. That might be easier, because I did also write down what I used them for. Okay, the next challenge is Read with Winnie the Pooh, and let me have a think. So, one of the books that I used was Pages & Co., Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales, and that one was, oh yeah, of course, I used it for just middle grade. That was one of the prompts. And then I also did Wood the Smith again for her readathon. Challenge, and I used this for a title that has the letters L-O-V-E for love. And what I decided to do is I decided to include the series title because that is technically part of the cover. So the letters L-O-V-E are in this. So we've got L's in Calling, we've got O in Morrigan, we've got the V from Nevermore, and then E we have multiples. We've got 1 in Wondersmith, we've got 2 in Nevermore. So I did it that way because I wasn't really finding anything that had all of those letters in titles. So yeah, that is what I used for that one. And then the next one I used was A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And I used this for Read a Book on a Windy Day because one of the days I was reading this book, it was very windy. So I used that one. And then, actually, I'll bring this one back because for Alma's Journey Through Time Historical Fiction Challenge, March was A Child's Tale. And I used A Little Princess for that because this is historical. And then we have Osina's Read Christian Romance. Did not complete that one this month. And then for the Francine Rivers Read-Along, that's also been hosted by Osina. March was the Atonement Child, and I also did not get to that one. And then, as you guys know, I was talking about my reading acts in the Bible and for March, and obviously I did not get to that one. So the Biblical Reading and Retelling Challenge that has been hosted by Cat Stories is not completed this month. So those are all my yearly challenges. Now I did do one readathon and I did complete most of those, technically all of them, but one of them I didn't actually read. Well, no, I didn't actually finish until it was only a day or two ago, so I've only just finished it. And we're on like the 6th of April. So I'm not sure if I'm going to count that. But there we go. Well, I'll tell you what it is anyway. No, I don't know what I'm doing. I'll tell you what books I used though. So for middle grade March, the prompts were name on the title, and I used Wondersmith Calling of Morrigan Crow because Morrigan Crow is the main character. And then one of the other books was books on the cover, and had a few of those in the end. But the one I picked specifically was Pages & Co., Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales by Anna James. Forgot to say the author when I mentioned it earlier, but that's who the author is, Anna James. And that has books on the cover. And I didn't tell you, but I'll tell you now, I also listened to that on Spotify, on audio. Then the next prompt is historical fiction, and obviously, as you all know, it's A Little Princess. And then read a book that has siblings featured, and I picked The Whisperwicks, The Labyrinth of Lost and Found by Jordan Lees, this had siblings because this girl there was looking for her brother. And you also see, at the beginning, you see her brother's point of view until he disappears. So we've got that. And then the last one was BIPOC author, and I did read this, but I didn't finish it in March. And that was The Toymaker's Apprentice by Sherry L. Smith, because she is a black woman. So yeah, I did pretty well considering, despite how difficult it was. But yeah, those are all the books all the challenges and readathons. Let's actually get into the reviews of my books. So I think these are mostly not in any specific order. So yeah. And I didn't, just to warn you, the books that I listen to on audio, I haven't necessarily written down who the narrators are, so I do apologise for that. But yeah, so the first book in my journal is the second book in the Pages & Co. series, which is Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales by Anna James. And I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a great book to read during the Christmas season, although it's not very heavy on it. It's quite light, but it takes place around Christmas, so you do get a little bit of that Christmas descriptions, but it's not heavy, so it didn't affect me. But I'm also not bothered about seasonal reading. I enjoy it, but I can read books in other seasons, although I tend not to read Christmas ones because they do tend to be heavier in their Christmas descriptions or winter descriptions. But Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales wasn't one of those. Even though I enjoyed it, I did find Tilly a bit annoying in this book. She was getting rebellious in this book. She is that sort of age. She's coming up to that sort of age where, kids are having, starting puberty, because she's about 11 or 12 years old. So depending on the child, they might be starting puberty if they haven't already. Not always, some do start later. But yeah, she was a bit rebellious, and yeah, she was a bit annoying because of that. Her friend Oscar, who was also in this book, he was definitely the sensible one of the two. So I did like him more in this book because of that. But I did enjoy it. I did find that there were some adults who weren't acting like adults. And I don't mean in terms of like a childish way, like silly or anything like that. I just mean in an irresponsible way. I thought it's complicated because also I don't want to spoil things. But yeah, basically Tilly meets some new people. Some of them are family members of Oscar's. Some of them are just friends of other family members or of any point. And basically there are some estranged friends. And basically there was too much trusting in this, and it went wrong because of that. So I found it quite annoying in that way. I found some of the adults were being really irresponsible when they should have known better. And they even, if I'm remembering correctly, I think they were even saying things where they knew better and basically said so, but did not act that way, and that was annoying. Especially when you're around children who are not yours. And even if they are yours, you should be responsible. But especially if they're not your own children, because, they're not your own kids. Yeah, I didn't like it as much, but I did enjoy it. It didn't put me off the series. Now, I do want to mention one content issue. It's only a small amount, and it's right near the end. But you meet a couple of characters who are trying to do book magic, basically. If you know the series, that's what the book wandering is. It's book magic, it's imagination. And basically these two characters, who you do find out are bad guys, but they basically do blood magic. on the kids, specifically Tilly. And I wasn't comfortable with that. And to be fair, it wasn't put forward as a good thing. But it also wasn't put forward very negatively either. Because Tilly was willing to do it. Certainly initially anyway. And yeah, I did not like that. I have read a few of the other books that hasn't occurred since. But, so if you are worried about that, it doesn't occur before or after the second book. So far, I haven't finished the series, but so far, none of that has reoccurred. But, yeah, I was not comfortable with that. It was brief, and not particularly descriptive from what I can remember. Although, to be fair, I was on audio, so just be aware, because I am hard of hearing, so there are things that I can miss. But from what I remember and hearing, it wasn't descriptive, but I was still like, whoa. I mean, if I was a kid, it probably wouldn't have bothered me as much. But as an adult and as a Christian, no, I didn't like that. I didn't feel comfortable about that. But yeah. It was brief. I don't know. It was right near the end. Yeah. That was my only legitimate issue. And a character being annoying isn't, not that it's not legitimate being annoyed by a character, but you know, it's not necessarily as much of a big deal. Especially with me being 30 and the main character being 11 or 12. But yeah, yeah, the blood thing was more of an issue. So yeah, but as you guys know, I did use it for Winnie the Pooh and for middle grade March, so that's good. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Read this physically. I gave this 4 stars as well. Did I tell you I gave Tilly 4 stars? I think I did. It's 4 stars anyway. I did enjoy this. I read this slowly, so initially it was a buddy read with Lucy last year, and then we decided to stop, and then I got back into it either in March or like on the cusp of February and March. So I decided to continue with this and use it for Anne's challenge because I want to try and not spend money. Doesn't always work for books that fit prompts, but it doesn't always work. So I decided to use this because it is a religious classic. It's just not American. Because that is an added option if you want to do that for her challenge, but you don't have to. Or you can do like a mixture, which is what I've been doing so far. So I did enjoy it. Obviously it's C.S. Lewis, so sometimes it can be a bit convoluted and wordy. It wasn't as bad as I thought it could have been. But depending on who's reading it, you might still find it difficult. Yeah, there wasn't anything big in terms of theology stuff that I didn't like or anything. I didn't have any massive issues. There was a moment, 1 or maybe even 2 comments that I wasn't really sure about myself as a Christian in terms of his point of view or something. I don't know whether it's more because of it not being explained as much, which is possible, or whether it was just me, which is possible. And I think it was just the one, but it was on, for this copy, it's on page 157. So this is the chapter, Let's Pretend, chapter 7. I mean, they do go back to chapter 1 with each part, but I'm on book 4, basically, the last book of this book. And it's talking about, right, that was it. I think he was talking about non-Christians still being close to the Spirit of Christ. I'm going to have to read it first. Right, yeah. So what he's talking about is how there's Christ in everything, even in the non-Christian spheres of things. Basically, you can't have... He uses the analogy of you can't have toast without bread, so if there's no bread, there's no toast. And he basically uses that analogy for, people doing Christ-like things, even if they're not, a believer, are still Christ. It's still Christ-like and based on that, which I do agree with. But then he also says, as another analogy of someone going to church regularly, you would think they're Christian, but then realises through doing that they're actually not a Christian, and they don't believe, and they decide to leave the church, and not in a way because they want to annoy their parents, but because they genuinely don't want to live the lie sort of thing. And C.S. Lewis says, basically, the Spirit of Christ is probably nearer to him then than it ever was before. And I wasn't sure about that. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying that I don't know enough to be able to agree with him. And it sounds... I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me. And that could just be me. I could just be wrong. And I am willing to say that if I end up being told what he means. I could just be not understanding what he's getting at with that. But yeah, it just didn't sit well with me at the time. I just wasn't quite sure about that. Also partly because the Spirit of Christ is always near us. So, he can't get nearer than he already is, if you know what I mean, in terms of Christ and the Holy Spirit. So to say that Christ is nearer to him then than ever before, when this person decides to leave the church or whatever, I don't know, it just doesn't... Maybe I'm just not understanding right. If you guys can explain to me better what he means, then, and say that it's not necessarily bad, then I would love to know, because I don't mind changing my mind. It's just, I don't know. It might just be me. But yeah, I wasn't quite sure about that particular sentence. But otherwise, there's nothing big theologically that I disagree with. So, I didn't mind it. There was nothing wrong. So yeah, 4 stars. Then the next book is the 3rd book in the Pages and Co series by Anna James, and this is Tilly and the Map of Stories. And again, I listened to this on audiobook on Spotify, and this was also but I gave this 5 stars. I enjoyed it a lot more than I did book 2. And yeah, this one was a little bit more seasonal in terms of when I read it. It's slightly later though, because it takes place around April and around the Easter season. Obviously I read it in March, but it's not that far. There's a mystery that's connected to the other book 2. I'm trying to remember what it is. Oh yeah, I think in book 2 there were people starting to forget things. So they're forgetting books, or there was a character in book 2 who comes into the shop and doesn't remember what he's looking for or why he's there. And I don't mean in necessarily a dementia way, or in a way where you're looking for a book but you can't remember it. Say you read it in your childhood, but it's forgetting, the character was forgetting, didn't know why he was even there. He didn't remember. And then there was a couple who were, I think they were newly married, or the children assumed that, and then something happened and they go their separate ways because they don't know why they're together. So weird things like that were starting to happen in book 2 and also happening in book 3. And it turns out it's because books were going missing, which is also based on the Lost Fairy Tale sort of thing in book 2. So you get a little bit of that again in book 3. Tilly was definitely a lot less annoying in this book. You meet new characters, so you meet another child called Milo, who lives on this train that travels, which is connected to the book magic and book wandering, so there's a lot of magic involved in that. And he lives on this train with his uncle, and there's like a mystery surrounding him and his uncle with that, in terms of like the kid's family, like the kid doesn't know either. And yeah, you meet some famous characters or characterizations of authors. So you meet Shakespeare and Jane Austen in particular. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really exciting. Tilly travels to other countries. She did in the second book. Yeah, there's a lot happens. There's not really much I can really talk about because of spoilers. But it does seem like there's a lot going on, and I will talk more about this in book 4, which I did get to read on audio again as well. But yes, I enjoyed it. There was no content I remember that was troublesome, like with the blood thing. So it was all good. I enjoyed it. I gave that 5 stars, and that didn't apply to any prompts for anything. Then the next book on my list is The Whisperix, The Labyrinth of Lost and Found by Jordan Lees. This was also 5 stars. This was a fantastic book. I first heard of this through Em from Em's Books Are Everywhere, and she was talking about this because basically there is a crack in this girl's brother's wall, the brother who goes missing that I mentioned. And there's a crack in his wall, and he can hear whispering in it. And basically, he talks to this thing that's inside this crack. Not really an entity, although kind of is at first, but he's not an entity. It's not like a demon or ghost. But basically, her brother goes missing because he listens to these whispers. He looks for this author, this beloved author that he loves and she loves as well. And basically, when he goes missing, we don't know what's gone on. We don't know anything, basically, but we do know that he was basically misled by this guy in the wall. And then you cut to this boy called Benjamin, who I kept reading him as Benjamin, because it's so close to Benjamin, but he's Benjamin. And so that was a bit difficult for me reading physically. For some reason, I just kept thinking Benjamin, and then I'm like, no, Benjamin. So yeah, just be aware of that. If your brain does that to you sometimes, it did with me. It wasn't a big deal though. And basically, he gave me autism vibes. I say vibes because there's nothing said that he is, but there's a few traits that I'm like, oh, that sounds like someone who could be autistic. And basically, this boy, he doesn't believe in magic. He's very, he doesn't read fiction. He's very much into non-fiction. He loves his chess, and he loves reading about chess and chess books and all sorts of different things. And basically, his parents are going through a tough time at the moment, with possible divorce, and he's currently they are on holiday to kind of try and fix their marriage, sort of thing. And whilst they're away, this doll arrives, and so Benjamin assumes it's from his parents, but when he opens it and finds that it's a doll, he's very confused because he knows his parents know he doesn't like that sort of thing, because he's not that sort of child. I think he's probably about, he's 11 years old. And basically, strange things start happening. He starts hearing birds, things get moved. He sees a monkey, and both the doll, the bird, and the monkey all have buttons for eyes. And basically, he then gets led into this other world because of that. Well, it was the doll, basically, and things ensue from there, basically. He basically goes to this other world that is full of magic, strange things are happening. Obviously this girl's brother goes missing, and he just so happens to bump into their father, who basically takes Benjamin to his home for now until they can figure out what to do. And basically Benjamin and the man's daughter go on an adventure looking for her brother. And there's a lot that goes into this. There's a little bit of, well, not just mystery, but there's a little bit of puzzles as well. There's stuff that's, there's definitely a amalgamation of different things, like mythologies as well as just magic in general. Yeah, let me think. So, yeah, and basically it sounded interesting, and the reason why I was initially intrigued when Em was talking about it is because the crack on the wall reminded me of a Doctor Who story arc, because it did arc over more than 1 or 2 episodes. It was like a whole series. I think it was one series, and basically it was about a crack but in the universe, and because of that you were hearing voices, or people were disappearing, people were forgetting things, because basically in Doctor Who everyone's mind would be wiped. They would, like, a person would go through that crack and it would be as if they never existed at all, like, and basically that's what this reminded me of. But it's nothing like that Doctor Who stuff. None of that happens in this book. It's basically the crack in the wall just reminded me of it, because that is how we first see it in Doctor Who. It's a crack in Amy Pond's bedroom. So yeah, that's literally the only connection. There's no other connection to the Doctor Who stuff in here, other than the fact that I think Benjamin is British. That's about it, and his family is. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. There were some twists. There were definitely times where I guessed things correctly, but there were still twists as well. I definitely cried, and this is a first book in the series. I will definitely read the series at some point, because it does wrap up nicely. So if you wanted to just read the one book, you can. There's definitely stuff that could still end up happening, but it wraps up nicely where you don't have to read the next book if you don't want to. So you don't have to worry about massive cliffhangers, because that's what happened with Tilly and the Book Wanderers, book 2, Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales. There was a massive cliffhanger, and I was like, well, and now I need to read book 3. So that's why I basically binged the series. Not the whole series, but a lot of it from the looks of things. Okay, the next one is Wondersmith, The Calling of Morrigan Crow by Jessica Townsend. Again, I listened to this on, I want to say Spotify, but was it Spotify? Or was it Audible? Yeah, no, Spotify. So no, I think it was Audible. It doesn't matter. Either way, I listened to this instead of reading it physically, and I gave it 5 stars. It was a fantastic book. Can't believe I waited so long to read book 2. It was really good. It was funny. It was emotional. There was so much excitement where I was like put metaphorically on the edge of my seat. There were changes in people, so like people change throughout the book who you don't necessarily like, but then change for the better, and vice versa, unfortunately. Yeah, there was definitely some twists in this as well, and yeah, it was just really good. Oh, it was so exciting. Love it. I can't wait to read book 3. And there were themes, and I don't know if I'm just reading into it. I could be, but I wondered if some of the themes were kind of based on, like, I could be wrong. So if any of you read this, I know Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot has been reading the series. In book 2, I feel like there might be some themes on like human trafficking, but I could be wrong, and it's kind of spoilery, so I don't want to say why I'm thinking that. So if you've read this book, then maybe you'll know, because there's stuff to do with people in snow globes. Let's just leave it at that. Like, is that kind of that sort of thing in like a magical universe way? Let me know. I could be reading into it. But either way, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And as you know, I used it for title with LOVE from Read with Winnie the Pooh. Jurassic Reading Challenge for Fan Family, because there's like Fan Family in this, as well as naming the title for With the Grade March. Then I read where did I go up to in the series? Book 4 in the Pages and Co series, and this is called The Book Smugglers, and again by Anna James. And again, this was also 5 stars. This book actually kind of pivots its focus a bit, and you don't really see Oscar in this book. You see Chili and Milo, who we meet in book 3, and basically it's kind of more in Milo's point of view, because basically something happens to Tilly's grandpa, and then the same thing ends up happening to Milo's uncle, and basically Milo and Tilly then band up together to try and kill them both. And so they're going here, there and everywhere. They go to the countries. They are visiting other parts of the book wandering world that you saw a little bit of in book 3, but you see a little bit more of in book 4. And there's basically everything it's all just very connected to each book, and I can't really talk much about it because of spoilers, so I'm having to keep it quite vague. Yes. You meet some more book characters, famous ones. You meet the Wizard of Oz characters and the railway children, the 3 kids. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I just think Anna James is putting too much into these books, because as I alluded to earlier, there were things that were talked about in book 2 and 3 that have not got resolved, and they still haven't got resolved in book 4, and I don't know if they still will, because there's a lot of other things happening as well that need to be wrapped up, and basically there's just different storylines basically going on at once, and nothing is getting solved. It just keeps getting, more stuff just keeps getting happening, and so it's not good in that respect. And from what I've heard from Kelly reads a lot, who's read this series, it sounds like this is going to happen, where there are loose ends and plot holes, and be aware of that if you're interested in the series. But otherwise there are no content issues with the book from what I remember. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I cried. It was exciting. I had all the feelings, as those Veggie Tales characters say that I've seen Celestia use. I had all the feelings, Bob, or whatever the quote is. I've never seen it, okay? Don't come at me. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And then the next book is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And I gave this 5 stars. I actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I saw the film as a child, and I was just really sad, and I didn't want to watch it again. Watched it once, I was like, nope. And then, as I got older, like an older teen adult, I heard it was a book as well. And I wasn't interested in reading it, but I thought I would. This was given to me as a gift for Christmas a couple of years ago, so I was like, you know what, I'll give it a go. It's fun, and I enjoyed it. It is sad. I won't say it isn't. But yeah, it's basically a riches to rags to riches again sort of story. It follows Sarah Crew, who is a daughter of a captain in an army. She grew up in India for the first 6 years of her life, and then her dad takes her to London to a boarding school. And it's supposed to be a nice, expensive boarding school. And, she's treated really nicely for all those years that her dad's alive and has a lot of money and is able to pay for her studies and for all of the things that she has. She gets special treatment because she gets rolled out as the sort of poster child for the school sort of thing. And basically something happens where she loses all that money, and basically the headmistress, who never really liked her in the first place, to be honest, then feels like she has reason to be more open, shall we say, about that. And she basically demotes Sarah Crew to essentially, is it like a servant girl? I don't know, but she treats her really badly. So I don't know if servant girl is the right title. But she basically gets treated really badly, and you basically go through several years. Basically, I think she descends when she's like a teen-ish, like 13, 14-ish. I'm not quite sure how old she is. But yeah. So there are a lot of sad things, bad things happening. Sarah Crew does model a very good Christian thing. I can't speak. She acts Christian-y. I don't know what the right words are. But she basically, is meek. She's, despite how she feels, she still tries to do her best, despite being ill-treated. All of those Christian actions, I don't know what the right words are, but the sort of things that you're told to model as a Christian, basically. And so, yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed it. There is a happy ending, so if you don't like reading sad books unless there's a happy ending, there is one. But yeah, I did enjoy it. And as you guys know, I used it for a read with Winnie the Pooh for Read on a Windy Day, Journey Through Time historical fiction for A Child's Tale, and obviously Middle Grade March for historical. Then I had another book on my Audible that I wasn't expecting to read, but decided to. And it did it does go with Middle Grade March. I reread and listened to it, and that was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I gave it 4 stars. It was really good. That was funny. There was craziness, weird rhyming things and stuff like that. The typical nonsense stuff that Alice in Wonderland is known for. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was 4 stars. There was nothing bad about it. That I do know who narrated that one, and that was Jodie Comer, a British actress. I think she's British. Okay, is there anything else I need to mention? No, yes. So the next book I finished was The Toymaker's Apprentice by Sherry L. Smith. This was my last book for the Middle Grade March readathon. It was supposed to be for the BIPOC author. It's up to you if you want to count it. For Middle Grade March, I only finished it 2 days ago from today, so it's up to you, because that is very well into April. But I enjoyed it. This, as I'm sure you can guess from the cover and the title, this is a bit of a retelling from the Nutcracker, and it's kind of also a little bit of a prequel, so it's kind of a bit of a prequel to it, and then you get at the end a retelling of the Nutcracker, and it was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. We basically follow a kid who I don't really know the age of, but I would probably say he's probably 13, 14, 12 at the youngest, so he's, a kid. and he is basically a Drosselmeyer, and he's related to Christian Drosselmeyer, who is the clockmaker / toy maker that I think we seem to know from the original story, I think. Although then again, there's also Zacharias Drosselmeyer, who is Stefan's father, who is a toy maker. So I forget. It's been a long time since I've read the book. And basically, yeah, Stefan's mum dies, and basically from there, stuff happens. And yeah, Stefan goes on adventures. He goes looking for a nut to save Princess Pirlipat, because she was bitten by the Queen of the Mice and was cursed to be wooden, but alive. And yeah, basically it's an adventure story. There's a little bit of grief that's in it. There's definitely lots of adventure. A little bit of humour, I think. It was good. I enjoyed it. I read this quite slowly. It took me a while. It is quite a big book. Now, the writing's not small. Like, the writing is really big, and there's lots of spaces. But it is like a 400-page book, near enough. So, it's a big book. And I did enjoy it. However, I was starting to be a bit slumpy. I was finding, too, that I just wasn't interested in reading anything. I don't think it's because of the book. I think it's more because of stuff that was going on at home at the time. My mum had an injury. She's okay. She did something stupid, and she's fine. She's getting a lot better now already. But yeah, basically I've just been tired mentally. So kind of like slumpy in that respect. So because when I was reading this book, I was enjoying it. It was really good. And I gave it like a 4-star. So it's not a bad book. I think it's just me. So I did enjoy it. There is a very light romance between Stefan and another girl his age called Marie. Marie. So there you go. You get some of the characters from the original book. Definitely much more appropriate of a love interest than in the original Nutcracker. If you know, you know. Very weird. And it's very light. I don't know whether, there's no age for either of them, so it's hard to know whether it's considered appropriate, and I think part of that is to do with your own personal views. I think when you're like 13 and stuff, you have crushes, so I can, it was definitely appropriate. But it's just whether you think it's necessary. I didn't think it was necessarily necessary. Say that twice. But I enjoyed it anyway. It was very light. It was not like the point of the story or anything. So yeah, I did enjoy it. Yeah, there were definitely, but this is actually historical. I wasn't sure, but yeah, this is actually historical. So this would also have counted for historical fiction for middle grade March. And because of that, there are also words used for people of colour that we don't necessarily use these days. Nothing derogatory from what I can tell, but they did use the word more, which has historically been used for people of colour. So just be aware of that. It wasn't, it wasn't offensive as far as I know, but just so you know. But yeah, I did enjoy it. It was a good book. And then my last book is an extra book that I wanted to read because of a film coming out, and that was, the film was called How to Make a Killing. That had Glenn Powell in it, and a few other famous actors. But the book was called Autobiography of a Serial Killer, or something like that, about a man called Israel Rank. And basically it's supposed to be a bit of a comedy. The book is historical. It's technically a classic in terms of when it was released, because I think it was the early 1900s. So definitely a classic, but not necessarily a famous one. It was okay. It was 3 stars. The film was okay too, but the book was long. It was like over 400 pages, and it felt a bit of a slog, really. It was okay enough for me to continue because I could have just DNF'd it, but I wanted to see how different it was to the film, and the film is different. The book is British, whereas the film, it's all American. It's an American family and stuff like that. So the book, basically, this woman is basically decides to marry a man who is below her social standing. She's from quite a prestigious family in Britain, not a real one as far as I can tell, but in the book. And so basically they, live in a modest house, just a normal family, and she has a son, and basically both his parents die. And his father is, as I'm sure you could tell by the kid's first name, is Jewish. And so basically there's a bit of the Jewish stuff that's talked about throughout the book in terms of racism. Nothing big, but it's there. And basically, because he's from a poor family, he feels like he's entitled to be the lord, basically of the family he's come from, the Gascoignes, which is in the book, is different in the film, but same thought processes. And basically, he's like, I think, the 8th in line or something like that, and so he basically decides he doesn't want to wait till, and basically never, get all that money and the title and the mansion castle thing. So he decides to start killing them off. He's not a likeable character. Most of the characters are not likeable. I only liked one of the couples who were just really sweet, whose son is one of the ones that Israel killed. I liked them. They were nice. And there's basically this other lady, woman from the Gascoigne family, who is also quite nice. I liked her. But yeah, most of them get killed off, and it's not good. I mean, I didn't expect to like the characters necessarily, but I really did not like him. He was not nice. He was a bit, he was a bit of a philanderer. So that wasn't great. There was nothing on page. It was all clean in that respect. But what he's talking, he basically said, oh yeah, I had intimate moments with her or whatever. So he's not moral in that way, which, doesn't surprise you if he's trying to murder people to get all this money or whatever. But yeah, it wasn't that funny. It was fine. I might have laughed at, well, maybe not even laughed. Might have chuckled a couple of times. But yeah, it was okay. Yeah. 3 stars is probably what I'd give it. The ending was interesting because that's when he gets found out. And he gets found out, by the way. That's not really a spoiler. He does say that he's in prison. It's his autobiography. So, it's not factual. It's just, it's written like it is because it's written in his point of view. But yeah. Yeah. And the film was okay. The film was pretty similar in a lot of ways, different in others. Yeah. I kind of like the film a little bit more, but not much more. Not enough to rewatch it. Cause, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's about it really. No, I was sipping my drink. Not really my book, but it was different. So yeah, I gave that one a 3 star. But yeah, that's everything I read in March. I don't know what I'm going to do about my slump. I don't know if I am slumpy still. I might just stick with reading my Bible books that I need to read first and then read some fiction. I'm not sure. we'll see. But yeah, thank you for watching. How did you do in March? Did you do middle grade March? Did you do March Mystery Madness? How did you do? Did you do one of the other readathons? Let me know about your March reads, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, and God bless.